Hey everyone, it's Mr. Lynn. Today is day 32 of quarantine. We are working on our musical piece, doing some composing, and today we are talking about writing our melody. So, when writing a melody, there's some not necessarily rules, but some advice that we've learned from talking with a lot of composers. So, the first bit of advice that we have is to think about our lines. Okay, think about the lines of the music. And really, when you're thinking about the lines, you're thinking about two aspects. Are they conjunct or are they disjunct? What that means is if your melody is very conjunct, that means it's moving very stepwise. Okay. Or think of it like going scale in scale steps. Disjunct, on the other hand, would mean creating a lot of jumps. Okay. Now, each of those can do different things within your melody, whether you have, depending on what part of the scale you're working in, it'll create a nice relaxed feel. Or if you're going in, say you're in a major piece and you're working in a minor part of the scale, that can create a lot of building tension as well. The more disjunct we are, the more tension it's going to create. If you look at some famous pieces of music, one of the best composed piece of music is Samuel Barber's Adagio for strings. It's all very stepwise. Ba-dee-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, right? It's very stepwise. And that creates this smooth feel to it. And if we looked in sharp contrast to that, say Stravinsky's Rite of Spring, which has got a lot of sudden jumps to it, that creates a lot of tension in the feel. So that's the first thing you want to think about. Think about the lines within your melody. The second thing I want you to think about is the rhythm within your melody. If your rhythm is all the same, say you're just doing straight quarter notes, bum, 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 it's going to feel dull. It's not saying you can't make it successful, but it's going to make it harder to have an interesting piece. On the other hand, if you've got too much rhythmic contrast, your piece is going to feel disjointed. Okay. It's not going to feel like it's got a cohesive idea to it. So you want to find that happy medium. If you're listening to your melody and you're saying to yourself, I like the notes, I like the line, I like that, but it just feels a little bit boring, try varying up the rhythm. Maybe throw a triplet in there or some dotted rhythms or something. Okay. But vary up the rhythm a little bit, and you're going to find that's going to give a lot more interest. The next tip is thinking about contour. Now, contour is not the same as lines, but it's kind of on the same path. So lines, we're thinking about more note to note on the small scale. And that's mostly looking at, are they moving in steps or are they moving in jumps? With contour, we're more looking at the line as a whole, the whole idea of your musical theme. And you want to be looking at what it's doing. Is it ascending or descending, right? So if it's an ascending melody, the first note's going to be the lowest note of your melody, and it's going to keep going higher. Descending, obviously, the other way. Convex, meaning the first and last note are your highest notes or about in the same range, and the range dips underneath. Concave, so what is that melody doing? Looking at that contour. Again, if you look to Samuel Barber's Adagio for strings, it really is, it's just the master of, you can hear, there's so much good stuff going on in that piece, but you can really hear the difference because he does all of it, right? He'll have ascending lines, dee da 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 dee da da, and then he'll have stuff that does nice convex or concave parts. Thinking about that when you're writing your melody is going to help. If you're listening to your melody, your musical themes, and you don't feel like they're really going there, you've experimented with the rhythm, you might need to think more about the contour of your melody. Next thing I think you should keep in mind is the range. Okay, think about the instruments you're writing for and think about what their comfortable range is. It's not saying you can't compose outside of their comfortable range, but just know, say, for example, you're writing for a trumpet and you write all the way down along the bottom of the treble clef there, that's going to have a different tone than, say, if you're writing it at the top of the clef. Okay, that tone is going to create a different feel. So even if you like your melody, if you're not keep thinking about the tone, it might communicate across differently than what you're intending. Another great example, looking at the bassoon. The bassoon's got a huge range, absolutely huge range. But when you're writing in the extremes of it, when you're writing that low range of the bassoon, if you think the beginning of the Sorcerer's Apprentice, boom, boom, bum, 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 right? It's got that feel, that kind of plotty feel. It's not saying it can't be lyrical, but it's got that feel. Same thing if you think, again, at the beginning of Rite of Spring, the bassoon plays super high, like up into the English horn range. And that's got a lot of tension. It's beautiful, but it's got a lot of tension to it. And in the middle, you got different feels. Same thing with French horn. Everybody knows, if you think of the beginning of a Disney movie where it's got that big horn call that's really high and it's really bright. But if you go down into the lower range, it can have a real dark feel to it. So think about the range of the instruments that you're writing for. The next thing when you're looking to write your melody, and if you might be having issues writing your melody, is to think about your harmonies. Now, we're going to go into harmonies a little bit more in the next video. But, so say you've been looking at all these other things and you're saying to yourself, something's not working here, or you're saying to yourself, I don't know where to go with my melody at this point. Think about if you can identify the chord that you're working in that part of your melody there. You can just kind of play around with that chord and find things that you might like. Guitarists are the masters of this. There's a lot of great guitar licks out there that really just came out of the guitarist is messing around with chord spellings, and they're doing one chord spelling and they're just playing around with it, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, that's a really cool line. So just take that chord, that if you can find the chord, take the chord and just play around with it, and you might find something that you like. So next we're going to look at what I'm working at for our string piece. Looking at here is the piece that I've been experimenting with. You can see I picked my key. And then I played around within the key, and I found that what was speaking to me was in 3/4, right? And as you can see, also, this is not yet even a single instrument part. So the playback right now is just going to be on a piano. Also, in case you're curious, I'm using a free application called Musescore. If you look up Musescore, I'll add that in the links below. But it's free. You just have to sign up for it. There's a premium version, but the free version is just fine. It's not the only free music writing program that's out there, but it's the one that I've used quite a bit. In fact, this is what I used when composing some of my other pieces. So I was playing around within the key, and these are the two melodies that I started coming up with. So they sound like this. So that's the first theme that I've come up with. And then my second theme starts down here. You can see it's a little bit shorter. So there's two themes that I've got. I've got an A theme and a B theme. Now, hopefully this works right for me. If I take all of this and I copy it and I paste it here, I've now created a little bit of a form, going back to the form that we talked about. And you'll hear this creates a more complete piece. Well, this is not what I think I'm going to do. Going back to A. Okay, and then I would go to the next part. What I think I'm actually going to do, if I cancel that, I think what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to repeat the B section again, and then I'm going to go back to my, oops, then I'm going to go back to my A section. And this is going to be the first section of my piece. Now, this is just my melody. This is the melody that I've been working on, and it's not set in stone. I might decide to change things up a little bit more as I'm playing with it. But this is where I wanted to start. You can see I've got, if you're looking within the lines, I've got some conjunct lines, and I've also got some disjunct portions. I've got some rhythmic variations between the dotted half notes, the quarter notes, the dotted quarter notes, eighth note patterns. Okay, I got some rhythmic variation, but if you look at it in the middle, you can see this rhythmic variation. This is going to be a little bit plain when I've got this double B section here. So I know I'm probably going to want to look at, but not necessarily, but I'm probably going to want to look at throwing some rhythmic variation in there. If you look at the contour of my lines, you can see that we are really doing kind of a flat contour, right? So I'm starting my A section on a B. It goes down a little bit. It goes up a little bit, down a little bit, up a little bit, but it comes back to that B. So it really doesn't do too much with a contour. If you're looking at my B, however, you see I'm starting down here on G, on the tonic, and we're coming up to this high E, and then we're working our way back down to the G, right? So that's right there. That's giving a little bit of contrast in the contour between the two sections. I haven't really thought about the range yet. I'm not going to have this melody just be in one part, right? It's going to be passed back and forth throughout the different parts. So I haven't really given that too much thought at this point. At this point, I'm just working on just a simple melody that I'm going to pass around. I haven't thought about the harmonies yet either, though you can see over here this this disjunct little section here is just outlining that major chord, the G, B, D chord, right? So this is the beginning of my piece. Tomorrow we're going to talk about analyzing the chords and slapping those chords on there and taking it to the next steps. So that's it for today. Step 3, playing around with the melody, developing the melody of your piece. It's a lot of experimentation. Just play with it and see what you come up with. See you tomorrow.